Jack's last-minute flight was a mess of delays and layovers, leaving him utterly exhausted. By the time he got home, the clock on his dashboard read almost 1 o'clock in the morning. He hadn't told anyone he was coming back 2 days earlier than planned, wanting to surprise his wife, Claire. Their recent distance had been weighing on him, and he hoped this small, unexpected gesture might bridge the growing gap between them. Despite his fatigue, he drove straight from the airport, a faint, hopeful smile playing on his lips as he imagined her shocked and happy expression. But as he pulled up to their house, a strange feeling washed over him. The home he had always pictured as a beacon of warmth and light was dark and silent. It was strange. He tried to tell himself she was simply asleep, but the moment he stepped out of the car, he knew something was wrong. The garage was open, and Claire's car wasn't there. His chest tightened with a cold dread. He tried to rationalize it. Maybe she was at an all-night pharmacy or with a friend, but the excuses felt hollow. He entered the house, not bothering to turn on any lights. The silence inside was so intense that every one of his footsteps echoed, a jarring sound in the stillness. He pulled out his phone and called Claire. She answered on the second ring, her voice thick and dragging, as if she had just woken up. "Hello?" "Hi, love. Did I wake you?" he asked, his voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil inside him. She took a deep breath, trying to sound natural. "I was sleeping, yes. Already closing my eyes here." Jack stood in the dark hallway, silent for 2 long seconds, controlling his breathing. "Are you at home?" "Of course I am, Jack. Where else would I be at this hour?" She didn't hesitate. Without another word, he walked to their bedroom and looked into the pitch-black room. He knew she wasn't there. "All right," he said calmly. "I just called to hear your voice. I'm going to sleep. I'll be back on Sunday." "Oh, okay then. I love you. Sleep well. Good night, Claire." He hung up before she could say anything else. He stood there, the phone still in his hand, as her words echoed in his head. She had lied, so easily, so effortlessly, claiming to be in bed while he was standing in their bedroom, knowing she was miles away. The betrayal hit him with a force that knocked the ground out from under him. It wasn't doubt anymore. It was a lie, cold and direct. He put his phone away and sat on the edge of the stairs, running a hand over his face. He tried to remember the last time Claire had been completely honest with him. Suddenly, the recent distance, the excessive work dinners, the sudden mood changes, and the strange laughs on the phone that stopped the moment he approached all made sense. The house felt like an empty theater, a stage where he had built a life that was now just a set for another, darker story. He walked through the silent living room, and a flash of metal on the coffee table caught his eye. It was a large gold wristwatch with a blue dial and a black leather strap, an extravagant, unmissable model. He slowly bent down and picked it up, as if afraid to touch the truth. He recognized it immediately. It was the same watch he had seen on Derek Coleman's wrist, Claire's boss, at a company dinner the previous year. No one else he knew wore anything so flashy. In that moment, everything inside Jack clicked into place with a sharp, devastating blow. Derek had been in his house, and he had left the watch behind. It wasn't speculation anymore. It was proof. The betrayal had a face, a name, and a forgotten object that screamed everything Claire had tried to hide with her sleepy voice just minutes before. He lay down on the bed without taking off his shoes, staring at the ceiling. His heart, which had been racing, now felt heavy. It didn't hurt yet, but something inside him was changing. He had always been a fair, calm man who preferred dialogue, but this time, words would be useless. If she had the courage to lie like that, he would have the courage to expose the truth. Jack woke early that Saturday with a plan already forming in his mind. The forgotten watch was still on the table, a silent witness. He stared at it for a few seconds before putting it in a small box and hiding it. Words would be unnecessary. The truth would speak for itself. He called Claire, his voice calm and casual, and told her a package would be delivered to the house that day, asking her to be there to receive it. Claire, still with that deceptive tone, replied that she would be out with her sisters, but Jack insisted she be home around 8 p.m. She confirmed, and as soon as he hung up, he smiled. He knew the exact time frame the house would be empty, giving him the space to put his plan into action. His first call was to Claire's parents. He said he had organized a surprise tribute for her at home, a celebration for her dedication to volunteering years ago. The story, while mostly a lie, sounded noble enough to convince anyone. Her mother was touched, and her father, though reserved, said they would be there. Jack kept his voice steady and measured. The more acceptance he got, the stronger his conviction grew. He made the same call to Claire's two sisters, Sarah and Michelle, and then to her closest friends, Amanda, Lisa, and Rachel. He knew exactly who to invite, the people she cherished most. No one suspected a thing. They all believed they were coming to celebrate a kind and dedicated woman, admired for her kindness. Then came the riskiest, most crucial part of the plan. The main target wasn't just Claire. Derek also needed to be involved, along with his wife, Julie Coleman. If Julie showed up, everything would be amplified. Jack called her with an enthusiastic, respectful tone. "Julie, I have wonderful news. I've organized a surprise for Claire, but there will be a second part that involves you and Derek." "Derek? But he traveled yesterday," Julie said. "Yes, I know, but I managed to convince him to come back early. Don't tell anyone. It's a double surprise." Jack lied smoothly. Julie laughed on the other end, a light, proud laugh. "My God, how sweet. He never told me anything." "Exactly. A night to celebrate you both and Claire." She was completely convinced. "I'll be there. I wouldn't miss it for anything." He thanked her and hung up, leaving the phone on the table. That single conversation sealed the plan. Julie would be Claire's mirror that night, and when the reflection appeared, the true image would reveal itself. Jack didn't need to raise his voice or fight. He just needed to show them. He discreetly prepared the backyard with snacks, drinks, and soft lights, asking the guests to enter through the back gate to keep the surprise. He was almost certain Claire and Derek would return that night, thinking the house was empty, and that was all he needed. The day passed slowly, each minute feeling like an hour. Jack took care of every detail, setting the stage for a theatrical performance. He sent messages to all the guests, asking them to arrive at 6 p.m. sharp, but with one critical condition: they were to park their cars on parallel streets and walk to the house. He explained that any visible cars or noise would ruin the surprise. Everyone agreed enthusiastically. The first guests began arriving at exactly 6 p.m., walking in silence, some even taking off their shoes. Jack greeted them with a quick gesture, directing them to the dimly lit backyard. They whispered among themselves, excited to see Claire's reaction. What no one knew was that this night would bring a devastating revelation. Around 7:30 p.m., Jack positioned himself in the hallway, his phone camera on and ready. He watched through a crack in the curtain as the front door slowly opened. They entered, laughing with the casual intimacy of people who believe they are completely alone. Derek held Claire by the waist, and they exchanged kisses. Claire threw her coat on the couch, and Derek began unbuttoning his shirt with a brazen, almost adolescent haste. They were completely absorbed in the moment, shielded by what they thought was the privacy of a dark, empty house. Jack, standing in the hallway, felt his heart pounding hard, but he didn't hesitate. He waited for the exact moment, and then firmly slid the glass door open. The sound of the track cut through the room like a gunshot. The silence that followed was absolute. All the guests, standing in the backyard, stared at the scene as if the world had frozen. Julie, Derek's wife, was the first to react. She screamed her husband's name as if her throat had torn. She took 2 steps forward and stopped, overwhelmed by the sight. Derek turned pale. Claire's eyes widened in panic, and she tried to grab her coat from the couch, but it was too late. The image was already exposed. Claire tried to run, but Julie's screams, her mother's horrified gaze, her father's look of disgust, and the blatant disappointment in her sister's eyes made her freeze. She tried to say something, but no words came out. Shame poured down her face faster than any tears. Jack remained motionless, filming steadily. There was no speech, no accusation, just the truth, raw and brutal, exactly as she had chosen to reveal it. Julie cried, her tears mixed with a furious anger, screaming at Derek. He tried to explain, stuttering, but everything he said only worsened his image. Claire stood frozen, a mechanical gesture of trying to cover herself. It no longer mattered. The shame grew heavier with every passing second. Jack slowly lowered his phone and looked directly at Claire. In that silence between them, it was clear that there was nothing left to say. She knew it was over. He didn't yell or beg for explanations. He simply showed her the living, exposed consequence of her actions. Claire finally ran to the bedroom. The guests began to disperse slowly, some embarrassed, others still in shock. Amidst the chaos, Jack sat at the backyard table, calmly opening a beer as if he were closing a chapter. A new beginning. A few minutes later, Claire appeared in the hallway, dressed, her face smeared with makeup. She tried to approach, but Jack raised a hand, signaling he didn't want to talk. She insisted, saying he was always absent and she felt lonely. Jack stood up, looked directly at her, and replied firmly, "You had 7 years to tell me that. You chose to lie and bring another man into our house. The blame for your choice isn't mine." She was speechless. He turned his back and went upstairs, locking the bedroom door behind him. The next day, the house was silent. Claire left before dawn without a note or an apology. Jack spent hours just looking at his hands, marveling at how the body kept moving forward even with the soul in pieces. He cleaned the kitchen and threw out the party leftovers as if he were cleaning not just the house, but the history they had built together. He took a leave from work, went for walks, and reconnected with old friends, allowing himself to relearn how to live in silence. The pain was there, but so was a strange relief, as if by exposing the truth, he had finally ripped out a tumor with his own hands. 2 days later, Claire appeared at the door again, her eyes swollen. She told him she had requested a transfer at her company and was moving to another city. She couldn't face her colleagues or the whispers. She tried to explain that what happened with Derek was just an impulse, a mistake she regretted even before being exposed. Derek, she said, had separated from Julie, who had left without looking back. Jack listened with a contained expression. He calmly told her that regret only comes when the consequence knocks on your door, and that choices are made when no one is watching. She tried to ask if there was any chance for the future, but he interrupted her, saying that when trust dies, love dies with it, and that the image of her with Derek would never leave his memory. She stood there for a few seconds, then nodded silently, turned her back, and left. There was no drama, no promises, no farewell. In the days that followed, Jack resumed his routine with a new kind of peace. He tidied the house, rearranged the drawers, and removed old photos. Each object he put back in its place was a sign that this phase was over. He had been pushed out of a story where he was being deceived, but it had freed him to write a new one. Sometime later, Julie contacted him with a short but sincere message. "Thank you for opening my eyes." They met for coffee, talking as if they understood each other's pain without needing to explain. With Julie, there were no games, and that was enough. Because what Jack wanted most from that point on was exactly that: peace, clarity, and the certainty that he would never lose himself in someone else's lie again.